I think we are live.
We are. Hello, everyone.
Hey, we are Digital Hammurabi. Dr. Josh. This is Megan. And Megan is putting the finishing touches on
one of our t-shirts, which is amazing and is a Sumerian proverb. And the design includes the cuneiform on the front and the English translation on the back. And it says,
maybe we should put the link in the
sure.
And
it's
then
hilarious, whatever it is.
And so you can go check it out. Oh, I don't care. What if you want to?
It's fine.
Anyway, so we got t-shirts is what we're trying to say. Yeah, you can go on to teespring.com. And Megan, this is all Megan. She's drawn a bunch of stuff up, and there's more stuff to come. Is that right?
That is.
Yes. And none of it looks like me, so it's all safe. And yeah, we're sliding the profit bar like all the way down, so it's as cheap as we can make it. Because we're not really in this. The money's not really the issue. I think it'd just be good to, people to wear our stuff would be really cool. Okay, anyway, so I'm Dr. Josh. Megan, this is Digital Hammurabi's book club, and we are going through the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the greatest story ever told. And right, so we left off. Maybe we should, if we have any announcements. We're going to be on Mr. Atheist
Sunday Mass tomorrow evening.
And I think that's at 9 Eastern Standard.
Maybe.
I like doing these in the afternoon, these book clubs, because then our European friends get to, hang out with us at a decent hour for them. So anyhow, and what else? I mentioned that I'm working on a project with Har and Ra. And I don't know if you saw last night, but good news. Mike Winger has, I think very kindly and appropriately, maybe is the right word, agreed to come on to Skylar's show, which is fantastic, I think, for both of them, because, Skylar's got a pretty big following. And I think that's, it's good to get for Mike to get that exposure to his audience. And of course, it's good for Skylar too, because Mike has a pretty big audience. But I just think it'll be a good discussion, honestly. And so yeah, that's in the works. What else? Yeah, Megan is uploading the next installment in Soothing Stories. ASMR.
I filmed it. I haven't edited it yet.
And we made a separate playlist for all of her soothing stories. And it's entitled ASMR with Megan, or something akin to that. So, yeah, anyway. There was something else I was going to say. What was it? What was in my head?
I don't know. Mathemagic Pagan wants to know what time Skylar on Monday.
Probably 8, but I'm not sure.
It'll be late for you. It's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern, roughly. CD Horde, how's the littlest Hammurabi? He's good. He's sleeping.
Yep.
Because right now is littlest Hammurabi bedtime.
Indeed.
So the house is relatively quiet.
Which is fantastic for this. There was something else I was going to say. I'm through chapter 8. I think I might have said that before, the Sumerian grammar. And I don't know if it's up on the Patreon page yet.
Chapter 8?
Like the whole
no,
draft up through 8. So it is a draft, obviously. All the information's in there, but like the the exercises and the signs and vocabulary and stuff, obviously not in there yet. It's not, I haven't even edited it, so there's probably spelling errors in it. But anyway, the information's there. I just figure it's a nice thing for people to have. I feel like there was something else that I was going to talk about. And
it's his birthday tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Yay!
It's my birthday tomorrow. That'll be good.
That'll be amazing. Someone was asking if we have a Dingier shirt. We do have a Dingier shirt. I am going to put a link. And this is a Dingir Sitchin shirt.
Yes. We have a couple of Sitchin shirts.
Yes. This is the Dingir Sitchin shirt. There will be just a plain Dingir shirt for those who wish to pronounce their own godhead to the world. I also want to do a range with divine names on because I think they're pretty fun to draw.
Yeah.
And I've also I've started doing line drawings of some ancient Near Eastern art because finding photographs and line drawings that are both up to date, high resolution, and free is really, really difficult. I did a project a while ago for a professor, and finding images that were out of copyright was incredibly challenging. So I'm making some. Hooray! So I have an illustration. Josh is going to get the iPad. I have an illustration of one of the Neo-Assyrian palace reliefs that shows a king quite brutally killing a lion. So in retrospect, it's not like the best image for a t-shirt, but it's really beautiful carving. So I started making a line drawing of that. We also want to do some of the old Babylonian erotic plaques, which involve two people making babies, drinking beer, all at the same time. So I want the image on the front, and it's not very PG, so you probably shouldn't wear it to children's birthday parties. But going to the pub is probably okay. So have the plaque on the front, and then on the back have the caption, "It's not porn if it's in a museum."
Yeah. Yes, it's not porn if it's in a museum.
I think that would be quite cool. Deborah McMillan, is the 9 p.m. tomorrow going to be a live show? I believe so, yes. I believe so.
That's what I was going to say. Right. So there has been, as you know, some concern that maybe... Oh,
sorry,
yeah,
I went to... Da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, snizzle my mizzle.
So yes, if you feel like having... I think that's King Ashurbanipal killing a lion emblazoned across your chest, keep your eyes peeled. We will be having a picture of that on a t-shirt relatively soon. CD Hoard, isn't the ancient world basically public domain? It is. The problem is if you take photographs of that public domain item, that is copyrighted unless you say otherwise. And if you draw a picture of it, that is also copyrighted unless you say otherwise. So finding good high quality images that you can use without paying someone is actually quite tricky. Sorry, you were
No, it's good. So I promise we'll start reading Gilgamesh here in a minute, but it's good to get this stuff upcoming. There's been some concern, particularly in the evangelical or the fundamentalist community, that I wasn't really a Christian. I didn't really believe in God. And of course, I wholeheartedly disagree, and I feel like that's none of their business. But because I feel like I want to be a thorough guy, I found an old sermon that I gave. It was actually my last sermon that I gave at the church I was pastoring, and it's been a little tricky to try to get it off. It's saved in a weird format, and I'm not terribly computer savvy, but I am recording it sort of with a screen record thing. Anyway, it should be able to go up maybe even today. So, yeah, I don't know. And if I made the comment, I watched it today. I made the comment when we were talking about Matt Powell a couple of months ago. And I said, in some ways, I feel like I was Matt Powell, like a very toned down version of Matt Powell, maybe, without the psychotic tendencies.
Someone's ordered 2 of our t-shirts already. I bet it was one of you. Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
guys.
amazing. We've sold a t-shirt.
That's so cool.
Sorry. I had a lot of fun coming up with t-shirt ideas yesterday.
I think you can get a coffee mug too.
You can. Actually, I want to do a coffee mug with...
Can I have a coffee mug?
Like cuneiform. Of course you can. That may or may not have been a Christmas present, so you have to forget it now. But I want to do a coffee mug with just cuneiform all wrapped around all the sides.
Oh, snap.
I don't know if I can do that with Teespring, but that would just be super cool.
Man, there's like this slight delay and I can see myself. I really am a good dancer.
You're an amazing dancer. Our 11-year-old loves his dancing.
I don't know that that's a good thing. Because she loves it like this.
She doesn't even do that. She insists that you stop and gets very embarrassed when the 5-year-old and I join in
Yes.
and dance with him. We were doing the time warp in the kitchen a couple of days ago.
It's just the jump to the left.
It is, which is Piper's new favorite song since we introduced it to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't know what it's called. So when she wants to hear it, she just starts singing it to me, which is amazing. And I love it.
Sorry.
I derail us quite regularly.
I can't. There was something. The point that I was trying to make about the Matt Powell thing is that in this sermon, you will hear me talk. You will hear me talk about headship in a marriage, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting. So
again, I've said it once. I will say it again. It's a good thing you and I did not meet any earlier in our lives.
That is true.
Because we would have not.
And actually, it's recording right now in the other room, and I have to. I feel like it's 1996. I have to go stop the recording, but let me go check on it. And if you want, you can tell people. Sorry,
I will tell people things.
Not saying that you can.
No. As a good Christian woman, I need your permission to do anything. We laugh. Oh, how we laugh. Christy Santiago says she likes the color choices of the t-shirts. Thank you. I like them. I now need to buy myself one of these t-shirts. And I'm kicking myself for not getting this done earlier because we're actually going to an academic conference on Wednesday, and that would be the perfect place to wear my Dingier t-shirt because everyone there will get the joke and also look at me very quizzically because most academics don't read Sitchin and so don't realize that people actually mistranslate the word Dingier.
Interestingly enough, and I mentioned this before, and now the cat's sort of out of the bag, so it's fine that I say it. The paper that I wrote a paper recently on Ezekiel 26, and again, it's a popular paper. I think it's rigorous, but it's a popular paper, so anybody can read it, and it's showing how Ezekiel 26, is prophecy that failed. Which again is fine if you're a Christian, and it's not a problem for you, but it's a problem for some. Anyhow, so I sent it to Dr. Reed to check. It's always good. It's always good to have a scholar in the field or another scholar in the field, whatever. Take a look at it, and the first thing he wrote back was, "Is this debated? Like, you have to write a paper on this?"
Yep.
So anyway, that paper is on Patreon. Is that right?
Yep, it is. If you feel like reading Josh's paper, join our Patreon. Even if you just pay $1 a month, you get the academic papers.
Come on, somebody.
And we all know that that's what you guys are here for.
Oh, yeah.
Smitty says, can we high five more? That was cute. We're very cute. I feel like we need a t-shirt declaring our cuteness. Although I don't think anyone would buy that.
Cuteiform. That was Kyle Curtis's idea for our show. For our channel.
We should do a Valentine live stream called Cuteiform.
Oh, that's great.
Smitty also says that we did the white people shuffle. Yep. It's a well-known fact that I cannot dance and generally speaking refuse to dance.
I make up for it because I'm an amazing
he's a
dancer.
Fantastic dancer and dances all the time. CD Horde, the cat's on the bed. The cat is on the bed. And at some point, I'm going to have to ask your help. We have to rehome Pond, who is the giant fluff ball behind me, because he's desperately unhappy here.
It's a very small house.
And he was fine up until the point where we had a baby, but now there is genuinely no quiet room in the house at all, and he is miserable.
Yeah, we took him to the vet.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that vets could diagnose cats with
stress.
Yeah, stress, which is interesting.
Very stressed.
Anyway.
So, Elias Fake Name said the cat's the favorite part of the show. Please don't leave us. So we have to, and I really don't want to take him to a shelter. And unfortunately, all of my friends are students, live in rented accommodation, and therefore can't take our cat. So if you have any ideas of how to responsibly rehome a beloved family pet, I'd love to hear from you, because I want to make sure he goes to a good place, because he's a wonderful cat and he deserves someone to love him. So Sorry, that took a melancholy turn.
Well, that's a great segue. That melancholy tone is a great segue for where we are in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So, if you recall, just to give sort of a broad, sweeping overview of where we've been so far, Gilgamesh is 2/3 god, and he rules over the city of Uruk, but he's mistreating his people, which he shouldn't be doing as a king. And so the people complain to the gods, and the gods create Enkidu, this wild animal-like semi-divine, whatever being. He's just extraordinarily powerful. And
did you get an email?
I did.
Good.
Sorry, it's a inside joke. Not a good one either. Maybe someday we'll talk about it. Anyhow, right. So they create Enkidu to be his equal, and Enkidu is humanized by the prostitute. I'm blanking on her name, Shamkhat, and let him blank for long, I guess. And Enkidu comes to Uruk and wrestles with Gilgamesh, and they become great buddies, and they decide they're going to go on this adventure, this quest, out to the cedar forest to kill Humbaba, Sumerian Huwawa, which I think is a much cooler name, Huwawa. And they go out, and it's a long part of the story, and they eventually get to Humbaba and kill him. And they cut down tall cedars from the cedar forest where Humbaba lived and was guarding the forest that he was guarding. And when they come back, Ishtar proposes essentially to Gilgamesh, who spurns her requests, which is not a good thing. And he doesn't do it in like a nice, polite way.
No, he's really mean.
Really mean.
He's really mean. I mean, she's not got the best track record with relationships, but to bring up every single way in which your previous relationships failed is generally poor form, I think.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Dating advice, it's not a good thing to do.
No. We should do ancient Mesopotamian dating advice from Ishtar.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I mean, it wouldn't be long.
And it wouldn't be good, probably.
No.
I like good dating advice,
Yeah,
I guess is what I'm saying.
Cool.
Go on a date, have some hot sex, and then
turn a guy into a toad.
Yeah, and then go to war.
Yep.
Right, so she gets really ticked off, goes to heaven to her father and says, "Give me the bull of heaven so that I can go kick some ass with it." And she comes down to earth with the bull of heaven, and Gilgamesh and Enkidu kill it.
Nice.
And so at that point, the gods have sort of had enough, and so they pronounce that Enkidu is going to die. So Enkidu suffers and dies. And that's where we pick up. I'm going to read the very end of Tablet 7. Gilgamesh is talking. My friend saw a vision which will never be equaled. The day he had the dream, his strength was exhausted. Enkidu was cast down. He lay one day sick, and then a second. Enkidu lay on his bed. His sickness worsened. A third day and a fourth day, the sickness of Enkidu worsened. A fifth day, a sixth, and a seventh, an eighth, a ninth, and a 10th. The sickness of Enkidu worsened. An 11th day and a 12th. Enkidu lay on the bed. He called for Gilgamesh and spoke to his friend. My God has taken against me, my friend. I do not die like one who falls in the midst of battle. I was afraid of combat, and my friend, one who falls in combat makes his name, but I do not fall in combat, and shall make not my name. And it's George here, sorry. He writes, the description of Enkidu's final death throes, which no doubt filled the remaining 30 or so lines of Tablet 7, is still to be recovered. So if you remember, cuneiform tablets made of clay, and so we have many copies of them, but sometimes you get to the end of a tablet and it's broken off. It's very, very common because, clay breaks at the edges like that.
CD Horde has a question.
Sure.
Would this epic be generally known to the public or only the upper levels of society?
That is a good question.
We get the best questions on this show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say I think mythological texts have to be known to some degree, obviously, by the public. I mean, we have, here's what's going on in my mind when you say that, the Old Assyrian period, right? We have what we know are merchants, essentially common people, relatively speaking, and they have their own Sargon, myth that they wrote. So, I mean, that there has to be, at least at that level, some knowledge of these texts. But I think at an even broader level, I mean, I was going somewhere with that.
Did they know texts?
Yeah, I mean, you have to think liturgies were performed in the public. I mean, we know this from Zingerli and from, anyway, that doesn't matter. Some of these big cities where you see processionals. I mean, of course, in the Neo-Assyrian period, there were processionals all the time. But I think it's, these texts are recited. These texts are known through the liturgy. So, something like the Enuma Elish is something that's recited. We see it in Mari. The lamentational liturgies are recited. So, yeah, I would say if I had to say, without looking back into this, looking at the secondary literature, yeah, I mean, I think maybe not in all the details, because they're not copying the text like the scribes were, but yeah, I would say.
And he follows that up with how literate was their society, which is another excellent question. And again, I say this at least once a stream. Mesopotamian history covers nearly 4,000 years and an immense geographical period. So we're giving very general answers. It probably varied quite a lot from time to time and place to place. But again, the period Josh was talking about, the Old Assyrian period, where you have merchants with mythological texts in their possession. They wrote one another letters. They didn't require a scribe to write letters to their families and their business partners, which tells us that there was probably a reasonable level of functional literacy, at least among some classes of people. And instead of using the entire cuneiform repertoire of several hundred signs, these merchants cut their sign list down to 30, 40, 50 signs, memorized just those ones and used those to write letters. So it's probably a reasonable level of literacy. Probably not like today's society where my 5-year-old can read.
Sure.
To a greater or lesser extent, but not bad for the ancient world.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a tough thing, and I don't think there's any real. Somebody like Klaus Wilke, for example, has written on this, but people have disagreed with his conclusions. I mean, this is how it works. So we just have to take the data points that we know and try to create a model.
And we have a couple more follow-up questions, actually. CD Horde is saying, is there more oral tradition than read by lay people? And Yami Yomizuki says, do you think the use of repetition in Sumerian texts might be a carryover from stories being passed down orally? I actually know very little about oral literature in Mesopotamian society. I know that in classical Greek literature, the repeated bits in the Odyssey are assumed to be from the oral tradition. And I've kind of always assumed that that's the case in Mesopotamia, but I've not actually read anything looking at that in an academic way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that type of repetition shows up in the ancient Near East. It's slightly different in Hebrew poetry, for example. There is repetition, but it's slightly modified repetition. But yeah, I mean, clearly the it's going to be very difficult to do this with you sitting here.
I can read if you
want. Yeah. So good question. I mean, it's orality is difficult to get at. It's difficult to get at. So.
I'm sorry, where were we?
Just the beginning of tablet 8.
Oh, and Beej says poor Enkidu, but it worked. We do remember his name.
Yeah, indeed.
So, you're right. He did gain immortality. At the very first glimmer of brightening dawn, Gilgamesh began mourning his friend. O Enkidu, whom your mother a gazelle and your father a wild donkey did raise, whom the wild asses did rear with their milk, whom the beasts of the wild did teach all the pastures. O Enkidu, may the paths of the forest of cedar mourn you without pause by day and by night. May the elders of teeming Uruk the sheepfold mourn you. May the crowds who gave us their blessing mourn you. May the high peaks of hills and mountains mourn you. May the pastures lament like your mother. May boxwood, cypress, and cedar mourn you, through whose midst we crept in our fury. May the bear mourn you, the hyena, the panther, the cheetah, the stag, and the jackal, the lion, the wild bull, the deer, the ibex, all the beasts of the wild. May the sacred river Ule mourn you, along whose banks we walked in our vigor. May the pure Euphrates mourn you, whose water we poured in libation from our skins. May the young men of Uruk the sheepfold mourn you, who witnessed our battle when we slew the bull of heaven. May the ploughman mourn you in his furrow, when he extols your name with his sweet yodel. May the of teeming Uruk the sheepfold mourn you, who sends forth your name with the first. May the shepherd mourn you in his sheepfold, who made sweet for your mouth the milk and butter. May the shepherd boy mourn you, who provided the ghee for your lips.
Man, you do have like this amazing voice. I'm like going into a trance here. Now the cat brings me out of it. Sorry, go ahead.
I love you.
Sorry.
I did a lot of public speaking in high school and
college. I can't imagine why. People just sitting there. Sorry, go ahead.
May the brewer mourn you, who provided the ale for your mouth. May the harlot mourn you, who anointed you with sweet-smelling oil. May, in the house of the wedding ceremony, mourn you, who, a wife. May mourn you like brothers. May their tresses be loosed down their backs like sisters. For Enkidu, your mother and father, on this very day I myself shall mourn you. Hear me, O young men, hear me. Hear me, O elders of teeming Uruk, hear me. I shall weep for Enkidu, my friend. Like a hired mourner woman, I shall bitterly wail. The axe at my side, in which my arm trusted, the dirk at my belt, the shield at my face, my festive garment, my girdle of delight, a wicked wind rose up and robbed me. Is he eating your button?
He is.
Thomas.
Why? I mean, I don't think you're going to get anywhere, boss.
Oh, my friend, wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild.
He said ass.
I could have said ass. I mean, coming from me, that's a little bit different. My friend Enkidu, wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. Having joined forces, we climbed the mountains, seized and slew the bull of heaven, destroyed Humbaba, who dwelt in the forest of cedar. Now what is this sleep that has seized you? You've become unconscious, you do not hear me. But he lifted not his head, he felt his heart, but it beat no longer. He covered like a bride the face of his friend. Like an eagle he circled around him. Like a lioness deprived of her cubs, he paced to and fro, this way and that. His curly hair he tore out in clumps. He ripped off his finery. Like something taboo, he cast it away. At the very first glimmer of brightening dawn, Gilgamesh sent forth a call to the land. O forge master, lapidary, coppersmith, jeweler, goldsmith, fashion my friend. He made a statue of his friend. The limbs of my friend shall be. Your eyebrows shall be of lapis lazuli, your chest of gold. Your body shall be of. I shall lay you out on a magnificent bed. I shall lay you out on a bed of honor. I shall place you on my left on a seat of repose. The rulers of the underworld will all kiss your feet. The people of Uruk I shall have mourn and lament you. The thriving people I shall fill full of woe for you. After you are gone, my hair will be matted in mourning. Clad in the skin of a lion, I shall wander the wild. At the very first glimmer of brightening dawn, Gilgamesh arose and entered his treasury. He undid its ceilings, inspected the gems. Obsidian, carnelian, lapis lazuli, alabaster. I'm going to skip the next few bits because it's very fragmentary. We don't have the beginning of lines, we just have the ends of them. And what it is a list of funerary offerings that Gilgamesh is taking out of his treasury for Enkidu. And it includes an awful lot of gold, ivory, precious materials like carnelian and iron, and also oxen. He's butchering oxen to sacrifice for Enkidu.
I'll read for a bit, but do you want to check? I think there were a couple of questions, or at least I saw something read.
Cadaver Splatter says, "Greetings, guys. I've missed you both. We missed you guys."
Man, we have 41 people watching.
Hey, pretty good.
How many likes?
18 likes. If you're watching and you're enjoying it, hit the like button. Oh. I need to stop doing this. I do this a lot. It's really weird because so I don't do it in real life though.
I know, but it's so cute. Oh. And also I found out recently that it's really easy, nudge nudge wink wink, to tweet a show that you're watching or like a YouTube thing that you're watching. You just click on it and hit Twitter and then hit tweet. Why not do it now? You know what I mean? Sorry.
People are saying very nice things about my reading. Cadaver Splatter is asking if we're using the Penguin version translated by George. We are indeed. Big fan of
It's the
George.
Best, Jerry. The best.
Brant is saying, really, they had hired mourners way back then too. Yes. Mourning was a woman's job. They would let their hair down, rub ash and dirt in their faces, on their clothes, and wail. Wailing is what we do, apparently.
Yeah, and I mean, that plays into the Gala priest who was in charge of lamenting at the professional level. Yeah, but you see that in like the Curse of Agaday and a text that we know is written in at least in the late those as early as or no later than, there you go, the late 3rd millennium. So what else we got? Who we got in here?
We have Brant, we have Shane, we have Smitty, Cadaver Splatter, B Havens, Beej, John Kobu, Yami Yomizuki, all of the people.
The best of the best. This is the cream of the crop here.
Oh, and Christy.
Oh, awesome.
I love our viewers. Doorknobhead, whaling, poor whales. Seems like they are going a little overboard.
What is it that Trevor said last night? Or no, it was on a comment on one of your videos. I used to worry about penis envy, but then I realized I had bigger things to worry about. There you go.
People are hilarious.
All right. So where am I skipping down to? Yeah, this is all. We can just skip through, I think, a lot of this. Right. Yeah. So that's actually the rest of Tablet 8. I'll read a couple of these because right at the end it seems to be decently preserved. So a double-edged dagger with a haft of lapis lazuli, adorned with an image of the pure Euphrates. For Bibu, the butcher of the netherworld, he displayed to the sun god. May Bibu, the butcher of the teeming netherworld, accept this. May he welcome my friend and walk at his side. For Dumuzi Abzu, the scapegoat of the netherworld, he displayed to the sun god. May Dumuzi Abzu, the scapegoat of the teeming netherworld, accept this. May he welcome my friend and walk at his side. It's broken. Okay. Judge of the Anunnaki, Gilgamesh heard these words. He conceived an idea of damming the river. At the very first glimmer of brightening dawn, Gilgamesh opened his gate. He brought out a great table of elamaku wood. He filled with honey a dish of carnelian. He filled with ghee a dish of lapis lazuli. He decorated and displayed it to the sun god. The rest of the description of Enkidu's funeral, which would have occupied the remaining 30 or so lines of Tablet 8, is yet to come to light. Okay, so Enkidu has died. He has prepared all of these things for his funeral. And here's the note by George at the beginning of Tablet 9. In mourning for Enkidu, whose death has brought home to him his own mortality. Do I want to read this? No, I feel like I'd be giving it away. How about I just wait?
Okay.
Okay. Tablet 9. I see red.
Oh, yeah. John Kobu, what is ghee? Is it the same stuff used in Indian cuisine? Yeah, it's rendered butter.
Rendered?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means.
I'm not sure I know what it means. It's cooked down somehow, I think. But yes, it is. Well, identifying food and plants and animals in ancient texts is really difficult because they often don't describe it in enough detail to understand exactly what they're talking about. But yes, it's the same word used here, and it should be same kind of oil, milk-based substance.
All right. For his friend Enkidu, Gilgamesh did bitterly weep as he wandered the wild. I shall die, and shall I not then be as Enkidu? Sorrow has entered my heart. I am afraid of death, so I wander the wild, to find Utanapishti, son of Ubartutu. On the road, traveling swiftly, I came one night to a mountain pass. I saw some lions and grew afraid. I lifted my head to the moon in prayer. To Sin, the lamp of the gods, went my supplications. O Sin, and keep me safe. Notice obviously this makes sense, right? But the difference in his attitude. The mighty slayer of Humbaba and the bull of heaven, and now he sees off in the distance lions, and
he's scared.
So, which of course makes sense, right? You get your own mortality.
Deborah McMillan asked, do we think that Gilgamesh is the biblical Nimrod?
I don't know that I've ever looked into that.
And I have no idea.
I'll take a look. Any of these questions, so here's the problem. I will forget the question within the next 27 seconds. So if there is a question that you have, please email it to me at Digital Hammurabi.
If it's something we can't answer.
Yeah, if it's something we can't answer on the spot, and we say we'll look into it, just shoot me an email, and then it'll sit there in my inbox and taunt me. Haha, you can't answer me. And that's when I answer it.
Just to show it.
Just show that question. That night he lay down, then woke from a dream. In the presence of the moon, he grew glad of life. He took up his axe in his hand. He drew forth the dirk from his belt. Like an arrow among them, he fell. He smote the lions. He killed them and scattered them. He clad himself in their skins. He ate their flesh. Gilgamesh dug wells that never existed before. Excuse me. He drank water as he chased the winds. Shamash grew worried, and bending down, he spoke to Gilgamesh. Oh, Gilgamesh, where are you wandering? The life that you seek, you never will find. Said Gilgamesh to him, to the hero Shamash, after roaming, wandering all through the wild, when I enter the netherworld, will rest be scarce? I shall lie there sleeping all down the years. Let my eyes see the sun and be sated with light. The darkness is hidden. How much light is left then? Is there left? When may the dead see the rays of the sun? To Mashu's twin mountains he came, which daily guard the rising sun, whose tops support the fabric of heaven, whose base reaches down to the netherworld. Just as a side note here, on the Non Sequitur show, at some point in the near term, I'll be going on to talk about cosmic geography in the Bible, and then sort of more broadly in the ancient Near East. Obviously, I won't hit on everything, but
why not?
Yeah, but stay tuned for that. That should be a good show. Yeah, the whole point for me going on there is to demonstrate how the Bible describes the earth as flat on pillars with like a dome over top of it. Okay. There were scorpion men guarding its gate, whose terror was dread, whose glance was death. If you remember, these are the guards that have rays that shoot people because they're guarding all the moves. Maybe.
It's not.
It's debated
No.
amongst some.
No, it's not.
Amongst
By,
one.
by some, you mean it's debated among Sitchin.
Yes, that's what I mean. So, okay, sorry. Right. Whose radiance was fearful, overwhelming the mountains. At sunrise and sunset, they guarded the sun. He means the Mu. That must be what it is. Guarding the Mu. There's a big fence there.
Nope.
Gilgamesh saw them. In fear and dread, he covered his face.
Yep.
I
Oh, there we go. Thomas is back.
he covered his face. Oh God.
Do you want me to take over?
Sure.
Let me just finish this.
It's somewhere on one of those 2 pages that I left off.
Thank you. I appreciate that. He was covering his face.
Sure.
Gilgamesh saw them. In fear and dread, he covered his face. Then he collected his wits and drew nearer to their presence. The scorpion man called to his mate, "He who has come to us, flesh of the gods is his body." The scorpion man's mate answered him, "2/3 of him is God, and 1/3 human." The scorpion man called out, saying a word to King Gilgamesh, flesh of the gods. "How did you come here, such a far road? How did you get here to be in my presence? How did you cross the seas whose passage is perilous? Let me learn of your journey." There's a bit of a break, and then when we come back, Gilgamesh is speaking. "I am seeking the road of my forefather, Utnapishti, who attended the gods' assembly and found life eternal. Of death and life he shall tell me the secret." The scorpion man opened his mouth to speak, saying to Gilgamesh, "Never before, O Gilgamesh, was there one like you. Never did anyone travel the path of the mountain. For 12 double hours its interior extends, the darkness is dense, and the light is there none. For the rising of the sun, for the setting of the sun." So it's a little confusing, but what he's doing is he's going to travel through this mystical mountain, which is a huge mountain, and it is the place, it's the path by which the sun gets to the other side of the earth. So it goes over the earth in one day and then goes through this mountain overnight to get to the other side and rise again.
Yeah, it's actually that sort of thing is debated. Like, is it a tunnel? Is it something that goes around the north, where the sun never shines? It's not entirely clear how this works. But yes, it's the place that, as Megan said, Gilgamesh has to go because this is the path of the sun.
So we have a couple of questions. Cadaver Splatter, do you feel Gilgamesh's search for life stems from his realization that he was a clumsy king without knowledge?
I mean, I think the text is clear that this quest is undertaken because he realizes his mortality. I think the point of him going ultimately to to those Nagu, to the Nagu where Utnapishtim was, or one of the results, I suppose, was to bring back that hidden knowledge that Utnapishtim had gained before the flood, because following the flood he was relegated to that distant place. So that was one of the effects. But I would say that as far as the text is concerned, I think he's making this journey because he's sensing his own mortality, and he's trying to figure out, because you'll see when he gets there, and of course I'm sure you know this, but when he gets there, how did you get eternal life? How did you get this immortality? And of course, Utnapishtim's response is, well, you'll see.
CD Horde, do we know if later societies could read these texts, or is this a much more recent acquisition of knowledge?
Oh, no, definitely could. So, I mean, you can see the original Gilgamesh texts compositions were composed in Sumerian. We know that they existed at least from the beginning of the second millennium, perhaps earlier. There's an old Babylonian and early second millennium Akkadian epic we're pretty convinced of. And of course, definitely this one that we're reading by the late second millennium, early first millennium, the Standard Babylonian Epic of Gilgamesh. But when you get to the biblical text, for example, the Book of Kohelet, which is pretty late, you have clear references to the Gilgamesh epic in it, so clear intertextuality between these two texts. And of course, we know that Gilgamesh was used in scribal training in different parts of the ancient Near East. So no, it's definitely not something that was only relegated to this small group of Mesopotamian scribes. I see
Smith
green.
Gave me a super chat. Thank you, Tim Smith.
You guys are awesome.
Definitely. People are saying that Thomas clearly loves you very much.
Yeah.
He does.
He wants to chew on that button some more, I think. It's just, I don't understand.
Why am I not allowed to do this?
Yeah. Paige carried, she probably still does when nobody's looking, but she used to carry him around and like as a baby, like holding him like a baby, and he would take his paw and put it over her mouth like that. It was really cute. Anyhow.
She thinks that's adorable. CD Horde, so cultural transmission through texts.
Yeah, I mean that's one way it happens.
But I mean, there were also like cultural transmission through things like the Babylonian exile.
Oh, sure.
And people just coming into contact with other people.
And I mean, you see this cultural interaction. Something that the Amarna period tells us, for example, is that there's a lot of fluidity between these regions. So, the letters reveal things like, oh, this local king is doing this to me, and I need more troops, or I'm getting invaded from the outside, and of course that's just one period. So there's actually a lot of interplay between these regions. It's not like there's isolation and they never see each other. So
Boolean says hi. Hello. Nice to see you.
Indeed.
And one more question before we get back to the text. Cadaver Splatter, what do you think the literacy rates were in the OB period? And that's your thing.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm trying to remember. So I'm trying to remember what Vilka said about it. I'd have to go back and look at his arguments. There's a book that I read and went, that's interesting, but I've got more things to worry about than this. I would say that certainly in the Old Babylonian period, things that we know, scribes were trained in houses. They weren't trained in large government, government-run institutions. So I suspect that, and I'm just thinking this through here. Why do you curse me? Of course, it's the first millennium text. You have to bear that in mind. But, why do you curse me? You know what, though? That's, now that I think about it, it's probably just trying to play into the greatness of Nippur. Never mind, strike that. I'm just thinking this through as I go. Yeah, I would say that it's, I don't know that I could say much more than that without. I think given the old Assyrian period, which is just north, roughly the same period, just a little bit earlier, you have high rates of literacy among merchants and their wives. I would say that probably literacy is wider spread than we maybe give it credit for. That probably didn't make a lot of sense.
Makes sense to me.
By the way, Megan is trying to get more T-shirt patterns drawn up. That's what she's doing right here. She's not
sorry,
I'm writing love letters or something to her boyfriend. I don't think. I'm just kidding.
No. I love you.
I love you.
Right, so the Scorpion are asking what he's doing. He says he's looking for
my moo. He's looking for my fiery rocket.
The Scorpion Man opened his mouth to speak, saying a word to King Gilgamesh, flesh of the gods. Go, Gilgamesh. May the mountains of Marshu allow you to pass. May the mountains and hills watch over your going. Let them help you in safety to continue your journey. May the gate of the mountains open before you. Gilgamesh heard these words. What the Scorpion Man told him, he took to heart. He took the path of the sun god. At 1 double hour, the darkness was dense and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 2 double hours, the darkness was dense and light there was none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 3 double hours, the darkness was dense and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 4 double hours, the darkness was dense and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 5 double hours, the darkness was dense and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. On reaching 6 double hours, the darkness was dense and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. On reaching 7 double hours, the darkness was dense and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 8 double hours, he was hurrying. The darkness was dense and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 9 double hours, the north wind. The darkness was dense and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. On reaching 10 double hours was very near. On reaching 11 double hours, a journey remained of 1 double hour. At 12 double hours, Gilgamesh came out in advance of the sun. There was brilliance. He went straight, as soon as he saw them, to the trees of the gods. A carnelian tree was in fruit, hung with branches of grapes, lovely to look at. A lapis lazuli tree bore foliage in full fruit and gorgeous to gaze on.
And this idea of these foreign distant lands bearing fruit that are jewels, this is sort of a trope in ancient Near Eastern texts. We see this in some of the, I think it's some of the royal inscriptions that talk about going to foreign lands and they're walking along on these rocks that turn out to be jewels. And anyway.
Yeah. What is a double hour? I always get this wrong.
Yeah. So the day has 24 hours. So double hours, 2-hour period.
There we go. Oh, Mrs. Snarky is here. Hello, Mrs. Snarky. Everyone is saying that Thomas is beautiful and they love him very much.
I'm double checking what I just said in Maß und Gewichte in RLA because that's the I was going to say that's the scholar in me, but that's the paranoid. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Doorknob head. Scribes were trained in houses. Were there scribe piddle pads found in houses?
It's a piddle pad.
Like potty training scribes. Doorknob head. So what has happened here is that Gilgamesh has made it through the mountain. I think that the end of that passage shows you that the sun god Shamash was coming up right behind him and he was very worried about getting burned alive. Hence the kind of sense of urgency.
And of course, this is a supernatural feat.
Right.
I mean, he's racing the sun.
And we have now come to the beginning of tablet 10, which takes place at the edge of the world. Do we have time to get through 10?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we just started an hour ago.
Yeah, I know. Oliver's going to wake up in approximately 3 seconds. So Gilgamesh has come through the mountain. He's out in this beautiful garden with trees made of precious gemstones. Sounds rather beautiful. And now we come to Shidori, the tavern keeper, because of course at the edge of the world there has to be a bar.
I wouldn't be going there if there weren't a bar.
Well, I'm not sure what kind of business she gets, but clearly enough to sustain herself. Shidori was a tavern keeper who lived by the seashore. There she dwelt in an inn by the seashore. Pot stands she had, and vats all in gold. She was swathed in hoods and veiled with veils. Gilgamesh came wandering. He was clad in a pelt and fearful to look on. The flesh of the gods he had in his body, but in his heart there was sorrow. His face resembled one come from afar. As the tavern keeper watched him in the distance, talking to herself, she spoke a word, taking counsel in her own mind. For sure this man is a hunter of wild bulls, but where does he come from, making straight for my gate? Thus the tavern keeper saw him and barred her gate and went up on the roof. So you've got this transformation of Gilgamesh from this like king of a civilized nation, princely to look at, very beautiful, very impressive, to someone that, well, he looks like he's been living rough for some time, mainly because he has been living rough for some time. But it says that, sorry, his face resembled one come from afar. So he looks tired. He looks worn down. He looks like he's been through quite the journey. And he has. He's just raced the sun through the mountains. I mean, I think that would take its toll physically on me as well. So she's scared, she's anxious, she's barred her gate and gone up onto the roof. But Gilgamesh gave ear too. He lifted his chin and turned towards her. Said Gilgamesh to her, to the tavern keeper, "Tavern keeper, why did you bar your gate as soon as you saw me?" "You barred your gate and went up on the roof. I shall smash down the door, I shall shatter the bolts." Said the tavern keeper to him, to Gilgamesh, "I barred my gate, I went up on the roof. Let me learn of your journey." Said Gilgamesh to her, to the tavern keeper, "My friend Enkidu and I, having joined forces, we climbed the mountains, seized and slew the bull of heaven, destroyed Humbaba who dwelt in the forest of cedar, killed lions in the mountain passes." Said the tavern keeper to him, to Gilgamesh, "If you and Enkidu were the ones who slew the guardian, destroyed Humbaba who dwelt in the forest of cedar, killed lions in the mountain passes, seized and slew the bull come down from heaven, why are your cheeks so hollow, your face so sunken? Why your mood so wretched, your visage so wasted? Why in your heart does sorrow reside, and your face resemble one come from afar? Why are your features burnt by frost and by sunshine? And why do you wander the wild in lion's garb?" Said Gilgamesh to her, to the tavern keeper, "Why should my cheeks not be hollow, my face not sunken, my mood not wretched, my visage not wasted? Should not sorrow reside in my heart, and my face not resemble one come from afar? Should not my features be burned by frost and by sunshine? And should I not wander the wild in lion's garb? My friend, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. My friend Enkidu, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. My friend, whom I loved so dear, who went with me through every danger. My friend Enkidu, whom I loved so dear, who went with me through every danger. The doom of mortals overtook him. 6 days I wept for him, and 7 nights. I did not surrender his body for burial until a maggot dropped from his nostril. Then I was afraid that I too would die. I grew fearful of death, and so wandered the wild. What became of my friend was too much to bear, so on a far road I wandered the wild. What became my friend Enkidu was too much to bear, so on a far path I wandered the wild.
Before we get too far past it, let me read George's comments on this section about him going through, because I think this is kind of interesting. And of course, Andrew George is the scholar on the Epic of Gilgamesh. So here we go. The Path of the Sun. This is, by the way, volume 1 of his 2-volume magnum opus on Gilgamesh. This is pages 494 and 495. The Path of the Sun, pitch dark and seemingly interminable, calls for explanation. Most commentators understand it to be a long underground tunnel. The extant text does not refer to a tunnel explicitly, but the mention of a gateway in the mountain is suggestive, and the Babylonian notion that Shamash regularly visited the netherworld witnesses a belief that the sun entered the earth at night. One should note, however, that there is nothing about Gilgamesh's journey along the path of the sun to suggest a traverse of the netherworld. Another opinion is that the path of the sun took Gilgamesh through the regions of perpetual darkness in the far north, a view that is seen as corroborated by the mention of the north wind when the journey was 3/4 over. Yet a third view accepts the traverse of the earth from end to end, but rebuts the notion of a tunnel without proposing where the path could have lain in relation to terrestrial geography. A detailed exegesis is called for. So if you want to write your dissertation on that. The division of the journey into Beru, the Akkadian word, is ambiguous, for the unit can be taken as a measure of distance, a league, and of time, a double hour. Gilgamesh issues into sunlight after at least 10 leagues or double hours, probably 12. 12 double hours is very suggestive, being a course of a whole Babylonian day. This is a period determined then, as now, by the...
Sorry, the cat's eating a plastic bag. Thomas, don't do that. Silly.
The perceived motion of the sun. Shamash travels his path in exactly 24 hours. If we are dealing in double hours, the most attractive interpretation, if we are dealing in double hours, the most attractive interpretation, were it not for one particular that I shall come to later. I feel like there's something off about that sentence. Okay, anyway. Would be that Gilgamesh must complete the path of the sun within one full day. What we should have in this episode would then be an epic race with the sun. Sunrise and sunset take place at the opposite ends of the earth, and if the path of the sun means a route between the two extremes, this race must have been equal in length to at least the full diameter of the world disk, an astonishing feat of endurance even for the greatest of heroes. Anyway,
there you go.
Thought that was useful.
I'm going to pass it over to you as the cat has decided that he should sit on me now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How can I keep silent? How can I stay quiet? My friend whom I loved has turned to clay. My friend Enkidu, whom I loved, has turned to clay. Shall I not be like him and also lie down, never to rise again through all eternity? Said Gilgamesh to her, to the tavern keeper, Now, O tavern keeper, where is the road to Utanapishti? What is its landmark? Tell me. Give me its landmark. If it may be done, I will cross the ocean. If it may not be done, I will wander the wild. By the way, how many people are you watching? 43. Man, you guys are awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
Said the tavern keeper to him, to Gilgamesh, O Gilgamesh, there never has been a way across, nor since olden days can anyone cross the ocean. Only Shamash the hero crosses the ocean, apart from the sun god who crosses the ocean. The crossing is perilous, its way full of hazard. At midday lie the waters of death. At midway lie the waters of death, blocking the passage forward. So besides, Gilgamesh, once you have crossed the ocean, when you reach the waters of death, what then will you do? Gilgamesh, there is Ur-Shanabi, the boatman of Utanapishti, and the stone ones are with him, as he picks a pine clean in the midst of the forest. Go then, let him see your face. It's just so funny to me. There's no way across. Like, nobody could do that. The only person that crosses is Shamash. Okay, so go down and
Also
see that guy
boat.
with the boat.
We have a couple of questions. CD Horde, is this a contrast between civilization and uncivilized societies? Hi.
Which part?
I don't know. Gilgamesh looking so rough.
Oh.
I guess after travel.
Mm.
It feels like a contrast between him and Enkidu again.
Yeah.
He's kind of gone from civilized. Enkidu went from uncivilized to civilized. Gilgamesh has gone from civilized to uncivilized.
Yeah.
But that's my random speculation.
That's got to be right then.
Backed up in everything.
You should go raise a moo.
Doorknob Head said that nose maggots taste just as good as any other maggots. Which is good to know. Thank you. And Trevelyan said that nose maggots, just another symptom of dogs, and just another symptom dog saliva medicine can't help with. You guys are hilarious. Tim Smith says, how old do you think this story is?
I mean, the epic itself, in written form, probably goes back to the early second millennium. The Gilgamesh stories, of course, we have copies extant from the early second millennium. It's tough to know, how much earlier it goes from there, but
so we're saying at least 4,000 years.
Yeah, it's at least 4,000 years old.
Christy Santiago said that if there was any way for us to read to her every night as she fell asleep, she would pay for that. We are planning a podcast at some point soon.
Oh, yeah. And you can just click on the ASMR with Megan.
Dog is apparently typing things for him.
What?
Doorknob Head's dog is typing things for him.
Oh, that's nice. Mm-hmm. Are they grammatically sound?
It's just a closed square bracket. Oh, CD Horde. No, is this a comparison of his civilization and non-civilized or hill peoples? I don't think so.
Which?
Like nomadic tribes, I guess.
You mean him putting on the lion skin?
Yeah, I don't think I mean, I could be wrong though.
I mean, they are considered like, the animals from the mountains, and they're, the ones that eat raw meat.
But then you get a lot of nomadic pastoral interplay in society. And
I mean, I think that might be difficult to nail down. It's not, I don't know that it's explicit.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility. Let's go with that.
There you go. I'm down with that. It's a very scholarly thing to say.
Thank you.
Something that is beyond the realm of possibility is that he's going to raise a moo.
Yes, no moo.
Like a rocket ship is what I'm referring to there. Okay. So she's just said there's no way across. Oh, but there's a way across.
No way unless you take the boat. Sorry.
And apparently it's common enough. They come across and they come back. Okay. Go then, let him see your face. If it may be done, go across with him. If it may not be done, turn around and go back. That's deep. That's what she said. Penis. Okay. Gilgamesh heard these words. He took up his axe in his hand. This, to me, is the natural response to her suggestion. He drew forth the dirk from his belt. Just like with the lions, forward he crept, and on them rushed down. Like an arrow, he fell among them. In the midst of the forest, his shout resounded. Uruk saw the bright. He took up an axe, and him. But he, Gilgamesh, struck his head. He seized his arm and pinned him down. Excuse me. Good grief. I need a nap. Oh. They took fright, the stone ones who crewed the boat, who were not harmed by the waters of death. It's interesting. This is obviously a parallelism to his coming across the lions and slaying them. I wonder what, I'd have to think about that a little bit, what the comparison is here. I mean, clearly he's making an unwise move. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's broken. He smashed them in his fury. He threw them in the river. He came back to stand over him as Uruk looked him in the eye. Said Uruk to him, to Gilgamesh. I feel like sometimes Yoda breaks in here to narrate. Said Uruk to him, to Gilgamesh. Okay. Tell me, what is your name? I am Uruk of Utnapishti the distant. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Uruk. Gilgamesh is my name, who came from Uruk who wound away around the mountains, the hidden road where rises the sun. Uruk said to him, to Gilgamesh, why are your cheeks so hollow, your face so sunken, your mood so wretched, your visage so wasted? Why in your heart does sorrow reside, and your face resemble one come from afar? Why are your features burnt by frost and by sunshine, and why do you wander the wild in lion's garb? Said Gilgamesh to him, to the boatman Uruk, why should my cheeks not be hollow, my face not sunken, my mood not wretched, my visage not wasted? Should not sorrow reside in my heart, and my face not resemble one come from afar? Should not my features be burnt by frost and by sunshine? And should I not wander the wild in lion's garb?
Nope.
You should not. Okay, my friend, a wild ass on the run. He said ass. Okay, sorry.
You're amazing.
Donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. My friend Enkidu, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. Having joined forces, we climbed the mountains, seized and slew the bull of heaven, destroyed Humbaba, who dwelt in the forest of cedar, killed lions in the mountain passes. My friend whom I love so dear, who with me wept through every danger, my friend Enkidu. Sorry. Whom I love so dear, who with me went through every danger. The doom of mortals overtook him. 6 days I wept for him, and 7 nights. I did not surrender his body for burial, until a maggot dropped from his nostril. Then I was afraid that I too would die. I grew fearful of death, so wander the wild. What became of my friend was too much to bear, so on the far road I wander the wild. What became of my friend Enkidu is too much to bear, so on a far path I wander the wild. How can I keep silent? How can I stay quiet? My friend whom I loved has turned to clay. My friend Enkidu, whom I loved, has turned to clay. Shall I not be like him, and also lie down, never to rise again through all eternity? Excuse me. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Uruk, the boatman, Now, Urshanabi, where is the road to Utanapishti? Where is its landmark? Tell me. Give me its landmark. If it may be done, I will cross the ocean. If it may not be done, I will wander the wild. Said Urshanabi to him, to Gilgamesh, your own hands, O Gilgamesh, have prevented your crossing. How ironic.
Idiot.
You smashed the stone ones, dumbass. Threw them in the river. The stone ones are smashed, and the pine is not stripped. Take up, O Gilgamesh, your axe in your hand. It's there's got to be something to this here. Your own hands have prevented your crossing. You'll never get over now. I guess you could go cut down some punting poles and we can get across that way. But okay, anyway. Take up, O Gilgamesh, your axe in your hand. Go down to the forest and cut 300 punting poles, each 5 rods in length. Trim them and furnish them each with a boss, and then bring them here into my presence. Gilgamesh heard these words. He took up his axe in his hand. He drew forth a dirk from his belt. Same passage. It's interesting. He went down to the forest and cut 300 punting poles, each 5 rods in length. He trimmed them and furnished them each with a boss, and he brought them to Urshanabi, the boatman. You should probably read for a while since I keep... Do you mind if I can make a cup of coffee? Mm-hmm. Does anybody mind if I can make a cup of coffee? I didn't hear any no's, so I'll be right back.
Gilgamesh and Urshanabi crewed the boat. They launched the craft and crewed it themselves. In 3 days they made a journey of a month and a half, and Urshanabi came to the waters of death. Said Urshanabi to him, to Gilgamesh, Set to, O Gilgamesh, take the first punting pole. Let your hands not touch the waters of death, lest you wither it. Take the second punting pole, Gilgamesh, a third and a fourth. Take a fifth punting pole, Gilgamesh, a sixth and a seventh. Take an 8th punting pole, Gilgamesh, a 9th and a 10th. Take an 11th punting pole, Gilgamesh, and a 12th. At 120 double furlongs, Gilgamesh had used all the punting poles. So he, Urshanabi, undid his clothing. Gilgamesh stripped off his garment. With arms held aloft, he made a yardarm. So what's happened is you can't touch the waters of death because you will die. So Gilgamesh has cut down, 120... He's cut down a bunch of punting poles, and each time he's used one to propel the boat forward, he's had to let it drop into the water. So then he's had to pick up another one, use that to propel them forward a little bit more, and then drop it. So eventually he's run out of punting poles. So he's used Urshanabi's clothes to make a sail. Utanapishti was watching Gilgamesh in the distance. Talking to himself, he spoke a word, taking counsel in his own mind. Why are the boat's stone ones all broken, and aboard it one who is not its master? He who comes is no man of mine, but on the right. I am looking, but he is no man of mine. Some broken bits. Gilgamesh drew near to the quayside. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Utanapishti, Utanapishti, who after the deluge, and then there's broken bits, but we can imagine that Gilgamesh is asking him after the deluge, how did you gain immortality? Said Utanapishti to him, to Gilgamesh, why are your cheeks so hollow, your face so sunken, your mood so wretched, your visage so wasted? Why in your heart does sorrow reside, and your face resemble one come from afar? Why are your features burnt by frost and by sunshine, and why do you wander the wild in lion's garb? Said Gilgamesh to him, to Utanapishti, why should my cheeks not be hollow, my face not sunken, my mood not wretched, my visage not wasted? Should not sorrow reside in my heart, and my face not resemble one come from afar? Should not my features be burnt by frost and by sunshine, and should not I wander the wild in lion's garb? My friend, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. My friend Enkidu, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. Having joined forces, we climbed the mountains, seized and slew the bull of heaven, destroyed Humbaba who dwelt in the forest of cedar, killed lions in the mountain passes. My friend, whom I loved so dear, who with me went through every danger. My friend Enkidu, whom I loved so dear, who with me went through every danger. The doom of mortals overtook him. 6 days I wept for him, and 7 nights. I did not surrender his body for burial, until a maggot dropped from his nostril. Then I was afraid that I too would die. I grew fearful of death, and so wander the wild. What became of my friend was too much to bear, So on a far road I wander the wild. What became of my friend Enkidu was too much to bear. So on a far path I wander the wild. How can I keep silent? How can I stay quiet? My friend whom I loved has turned to clay. My friend Enkidu whom I loved has turned to clay. Shall I not be like him and also lie down, never to rise again through all eternity? We're going to take a break because we have some questions.
Oh, cool.
Evil Elvis, so he's running away from his own fear of death. Yep. He's trying desperately to become immortal. Beej, are they saying turned to clay because they believed they were made from clay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They mixed the blood of a god with clay. The gods mixed blood of a god with clay and made humanity. Tim Smith, how do you get 2/3 god and 1/3 human? His mother was divine.
When a divine mother and a human father love each other.
Very much. Why it's not half and half, I'm not quite sure.
Well, because the divine is more powerful.
Okay. Sure. It's good as on.
This was my very scholarly, I don't know phase.
Trevor Lunn, white, 1 sugar for me, thanks.
Roger that.
Zupay to the True Zoo also has coffee and highly recommends it.
This is a very high quality Nescafe or something similar. I didn't actually look at it.
It is Nescafe.
It's instant.
Mossaz Idog, why did the gods isolate Utnapishti from humanity?
Why? So in the story, in the flood story, by the way, Steve Tinney has a good lecture about this, at least some of this, on the University of Pennsylvania's website. Brilliant scholar, Steve Tinney. But Utnapishtim and
do this, I'm going to make some tea.
oh sure. Oh, I wish you'd have said something about
I didn't want any when you were going.
That makes sense. Is Utnapishtim. So he's the one, of course, from the flood story that is saved. He's the Noah character. And did she just read that? I don't.
No.
Okay, no. She said no. And so, of course, Enlil, who is sort of the jackass of the story, has decided everything's too loud, and so he wants to flood the world so that he can get some, peace and quiet. And so he has. I'm going to try to look at the side chat while I do this. He wants to send a plague, and then he wants to send all these other things. And Enki, Ea, prevents him from destroying humanity. And part of the reason is humanity possesses the knowledge of Enki that was given, as we see later in the tradition, by the Apkallu, these fishmen. Anyhow, wow, somebody just fired up a really loud engine. So, good Lord. Maybe it's a mood taking off. Maybe that's what that is. It's not. God damn it. I can't. So anyway, Enlil is thwarted by Ea, and he gets really pissed off when he finds out that that Utnapishtim has been saved, Atrahasis has been saved, Sudra, whatever, depending on the story that you're reading. And he comes down and sees them and determines that character, even though he won't be killed, has to be relegated to this distant land. And so while that secret knowledge is saved by Ea, that knowledge from before the flood, it's then sent off to a distant land that nobody can get to. And so part of this story is, of course, Gilgamesh making it out there and being told the secret knowledge to bring it back to humanity. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but what else? I don't know where the last question was. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, good. The question is not, is there life after death? The question is whether there is life before coffee.
That's a good question.
Right calendar.
Cool.
I didn't answer the question because I stink.
Ah, fair enough. People are commenting on the joys of coffee. Christy is a coffee snob and can't drink instant coffee. See, Josh has a very fancy coffee machine, but he took it to work.
You're a Capressa.
This is a birthday present last year.
Actually, the other one is a DeLonghi.
Interesting suggestion from the Peanut Gallery. Maybe the repeated lines are teaching technique in scribal training. One scribe wrote repetition 1, scribe in training wrote repetition 2. I don't think for this, but that is a technique that they employed. Some of the tablets used in scribal training have like the master's copy on one side. There's 2 of those, a few. Oh, sorry, I bought chocolate pennies through. Has the master's copy on one side and then the student's copy on the other side. So like they write out a section of possibly Gilgamesh. I don't know. It's been a long time since I did
Not on tablet. Not on tablet.
Not on those.
Not on
Okay.
2 tablets, but
so they wrote out a section of text, the teacher, and then the scribe in training would copy it out on the other side, and then they'd wipe it down and erase what they'd just written and keep practicing. And if you turn the tablets on their sides, the student side is actually worn down because it's been rubbed out so many times. It's pretty cool.
Smitty, I do.
Tim Smith, didn't Gilgamesh's mother say that Gilgamesh will love Enkidu as a woman? Good catch. Yes, she did. Several times. So I'm not saying they weren't gay. I'm leaving it there. You draw your own
Gilgamesh is not a secret homosexual.
No, he's a flaming open homosexual.
Yeah. Come on, Smitty.
Moss has a dog saying that Enki was being a dick and suppressing humanity's potential. Yeah, pretty much. Enki, well...
Wait, what?
Not Enki. Enki tends to save humanity in these. Enlil.
Enlil was, sure.
Enlil, definitely. I mean, we're not going to say anything more about Gilgamesh's sexuality because I don't know that we can prove it either way. But yes, she uses the phrase "love as a woman" several times, and they were very close. Why does it seem Gilgamesh's mother goddess seems to be rather cold to him when he asked for help? I don't think. I mean, can you give us a specific section? I don't think she was. I mean, she prays for him. She goes up on the roof and basically
she's actually really worried about
Shamash into giving him help for the journey to Humbaba. Misha Griffith. Hello, Dr. Griffith. Nice to see you. I think when it comes to sex, Gilgamesh was more interested in a pulse, and that's about it. You definitely get that impression, don't you? Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay, where were we?
We're reading the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Were you just answering questions while I was out?
That's
where I left off.
Yes, I didn't read anything.
Deborah, before Enkidu turned to clay, was he in an ethereal state? Do you mean before or after he died? Before he died, no, very much human, mortal, corporeal person. After he died, are you asking, is there a spirit or a soul kind of thing?
There's a ghost.
There is a ghost. Non-Plinkson number 9,000. Do you follow modern Middle Eastern events? Some, yes. Not as assiduously as I would like. Assiduously, not acidiously.
It's just an English pronunciation of that.
It is?
Pip, pip.
It's a really good show.
Quite right.
Not as much as I would like, but yes, I do try and read about it when I can. CD Horde, any evidence of other texts used for training scribes or just the Epic of Gilgamesh? Loads and loads and loads. Loads. Most of the literary texts we know come from scribal training.
Actually, it's one of the interesting things about, we've got a video on this on the channel, but part of my dissertation was written on this. But actually, most of the literary texts, most of the Sumerian literary texts that we have are products of scribal education. So that's why we have so many of them, because during the Old Babylonian period, that's what they did. There are several stages to scribal training, but the more intermediate and advanced stages, there's a certain type of long, skinny tablet. It's called a type 3 tablet. And the scribe was charged with memorizing and copying from memory a quarter of a literary composition, roughly. And they would do that. They'd copy out the first quarter and memorize it. And then they'd copy out the second quarter of the composition, and the third, and then the fourth, on these tablets, these type 3 tablets. And then once all 4 quarters had been memorized, then they would take a type 1 tablet, which is a multi-column tablet, bigger, and they would copy out the entirety of the composition from memory. Dr. Paul Del Nero wrote his dissertation on this, Old Babylonian Scribal Education, of these really 10 very popular texts called the Decad. And because of terror in his Melamu, I can quote them from memory, the names of them, not the text.
Refer to Dr. Del Nero's Melamu.
Well, you know.
That's amazing.
That's how it was.
Melamu is like a kind of terrifying radiance possessed by kings and gods.
Oh, it was so funny.
Definitely something you see in your advisor when you're a doctoral student.
All right, so he would do these things that was very effective. It's terrifying, but very effective. He would throw out information that was very general, and you didn't think it was, sorry, not general, very specific, and you didn't think it was something you really needed to memorize. And then he'd come back the very next week and ask you about it, and then get very upset with you if you hadn't memorized it. This was one of them. So he said, I'm going to tell you the 10 texts of the Decad. There's Shulgiye, Lipidishtare, the Song of the Hoe, Inanna B, it's Enlo A, the Kesh Temple Hymn, Enki's Journey to Nippur, Inanna Nabik, Lipidishtar B, and A or B, I can't remember which one, and then Gilgamesh and Huala A. I think that was 10. Anyway, and so he came in. So we sat there, Caleb and I memorized that thing like cold. Like we were 5 a.m. We're sitting there firing off questions at each other about that because we knew he was going to ask, and he never did, or he didn't that next week. And like 6 months later, we're all disappointed. 6 months later, out of nowhere, he says, "So this is one of the 10 texts of the Decad. Josh, what are they?" And I went. Now I had memorized the way I'd memorized it. I'd memorized this acronym. I had no idea what to come up with. She loves songs, and every kite, even I need gold.
That's incredible.
Thank you. She loves songs, and every kite, even I need gold. And so he says, "What are they?" And I went, and so I went, so I'm going in my head. She loves, okay, so Shulgiye, Lipidishtare, Song of a Lugal. Anyway, so he goes, "Are you channeling the spirit of a scribe?" And I went, "Shut up, yes," which was a bad thing to say to your advisor. But she loves songs, and every kite, even I need gold.
You're the best ever. I love you. One more question before we get back to the text. Actually, 2 more questions because we have Deborah McMillan.
I think I missed Nungale. Did I miss Nungale?
Maybe. Moss says the dog, are the gods and Abzu people related, or are the Abzu people gods as well? And clarifies saying Abzu are those who taught humanity knowledge.
I have no idea what you just said, but it was probably awesome.
Are the gods and Abzu people related, or are the Abzu people gods as well? And he goes on to say that the Abzu people are those who taught humanity knowledge.
Oh, the Apkallu? The ones that came from the sea.
The 7 sages.
Are they? Sorry.
Are they gods?
No, they were kings, early kings. Well, I mean, it probably varied.
Bit of column A, bit of column B.
Yeah, I mean, so in the later tradition, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I would say yes. I mean, so, the Apkallu are semi-divine beings, probably like angelic, roughly. This is not doing research on it. This is just sort of going with my...
They weren't mortal. Probably not fully gods.
Yeah.
In the sense of Ea and Anu and Ishtar.
Yeah, I mean, they were not early kings. They were early sages to the kings.
Deborah McMillan, I didn't understand why Gilgamesh used the term tentacle. Right, it wasn't that he was like a spirit form. I think Beej answered the question later on. Humanity was understood as having been created from the blood of a god mixed with some clay.
It's very much like early Genesis.
Oh, and sorry. So she's clarifying, the thing is the living or the chaff of the field are ethereal until they fell, at least some, and became the Nakash.
The Nakash? The serpent?
I guess.
Sorry, I'm having a tough time seeing it.
Oh, apparently Beach got the question right. If you need clarification, leave another comment and we will...
Yeah, sorry.
Try and go for it. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Utnapishti, I thought, I will find Utnapishti the distant, of whom men tell. And I wandered, journeying through every land. Many times I passed through terrible mountains. Many times I crossed and recrossed all the oceans. Of slumber sweet, my face had too little. I scourged myself by going sleepless. I have filled my sinews with sorrow, and what have I achieved by my toil? I had yet to reach the tavern keeper. My clothing was worn out. I killed bear, hyena, lion, panther, cheetah, deer, ibex, the beasts and games of the field. I ate their flesh, their pelts I flayed. Now let the god of sorrow be barred. Let its door be sealed with tar and pitch. For my sake, they shall interrupt the dancing no more. I've just realized we've got top chat on and not live chat. I hate that YouTube automatically does top chat instead of live chat because I worry that I miss things.
What's a top chat?
Like the most popular comments, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how they distinguish. He did eat hyena beach. Very smelly. Yeah, so top chat. Some messages such as potential spam may not be visible.
Oh.
Which is fine, but I worry about...
Yeah.
Missing someone's
well, if somebody says penis, you want to see that.
You do. You do.
You want to see penis.
Now let the gate of sorrow be barred. Let its door be sealed with tar and pitch. For my sake, they shall interrupt the dancing no more. For me, happy and carefree. Said Utnapishti to him, to Gilgamesh, why, Gilgamesh, do you ever chase sorrow? You, who are built from God's flesh and human, whom the gods did fashion like your father and mother. Did you, Gilgamesh, compare your lot with the fool? They placed the throne in the assembly and told you, sit. The fool gets leftover yeast instead of fresh ghee, bran and grist instead of best flour. He is clad in a rag instead of fine garments. Instead of a belt, he is girt with old rope. Because he has no advisers to guide him, his affairs lack counsel. Have thought for him, Gilgamesh, who is their master, as many as... Got a lot of broken bits here. Generally speaking, Utnapishti is giving Gilgamesh his thoughts and basically saying, what the hell are you doing? Pull yourself together, man. Enkidu indeed they took to his doom, but you toiled away, and what did you achieve? You exhausted yourself with ceaseless toil, you fill your sinews with sorrow, bringing forward the end of your days. Man is snapped off like a reed in a cane rape. The comely young man, the pretty young woman, all too soon in their prime, death abducts them. No one at all sees death. No one at all sees the face of death. No one at all hears the voice of death. Death so savage, who hacks men down. Ever do we build our households, ever do we make our nests, ever do brothers divide their inheritance, ever do feuds arise in the land. Ever the river has risen and brought us the flood, the mayfly floating on the water, on the face of the sun its countenance gazes, then all of a sudden nothing is there. The abducted and the dead, how alike is their lot, but never was drawn the likeness of death. Never in the land did the dead greet a man. The Anunnaki, the great gods, held an assembly. Mamitum, maker of destiny, fixed fates with them. Both death and life they have established, but the day of death they do not disclose. Dun dun dun.
Hmm.
Tablet 9.
Well, we are probably at a place where we could open this up to questions.
Yep. We have a question from Tim Smith. When was the first theology of a firmament formed?
In written form, I mean, because that's really it's really all that we can go by. You see it in the early Sumerian creation accounts, heaven copulating with earth. So when we say firmament, I guess the idea there is, the sky being this solid thing, either made of stone or some hammered out thing. Yeah.
That does happen, right?
What's that?
The sky is lapis lazuli.
Or
am I making?
I'm trying to remember. It's a blue stone. I can't remember which blue stone.
It's the super fancy one. Oh, yeah. Sorry, if it's a blue
it's
stone,
very super fancy.
It's a blue stone. It'll be lapis. Doorknobhead says that all of his comments are pretty much spam, 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 spam. Shut up, stupid Vikings. That's a good sketch. I like that sketch. 47 watching. Hello, everybody.
Man,
hit the like button if you're here and you like what you're seeing.
Smash that like button. Like button.
Hey, Osiris isn't here. Oh, I knew there was someone missing.
Ew, what?
Ew, what? I'm also putting in the chat a link to our most recent t-shirt because I'm very, very proud of it. I say most recently, we've been doing this for weeks. This is literally the second day of having a Teespring account. But this particular t-shirt, did
you guys know that we have t-shirts? I don't know. Did we tell you that? I can't remember.
I'm gonna have to buy most of these because I think they're hilarious. But this particular t-shirt has a Sumerian proverb in cuneiform on the front, which looks quite classy. But then on the back, it has the English translation, which is less classy, and reads as follows. Something which has never occurred since time immemorial. A young woman did not fart in her husband's embrace. See? A proverb for all times.
It is.
I do think the writing might be a bit small, though.
Yeah, I wonder if we can make it bigger. That's what she asked.
I'll do some research into that and see what I can work out.
Oh, but we've got t-shirts that say it's pronounced dinger on the front, which means God or deity or something. And then on the back it says not dingir, which is or it's dinger. I can't remember what it says now. Clearly I don't have one yet. But it's not the one of the fiery rocket ships or something. Oh, and there's one, the Sumerian proverb that says
the road is long, but there is good. I haven't done that yet, but I will be. There's also an awesome one about pregnancy that says something like being sick is tolerable, being pregnant is difficult, being sick and pregnant is impossible. Like, yep.
It's like having your femur cracked when you're pregnant or giving birth.
Having your femur cracked while you're giving birth.
Yeah.
I cannot think that's a good idea.
No.
Comfortable.
Yeah, it wouldn't be comfortable.
Sorry, I've got babies on the brain. My sister gave birth last week. Deborah McMillan says, my understanding is that Enki was Lord of the Serpents or the Nakash. Not sure about that one.
Lord of the Serpents?
I'll take that off.
I don't know that I've ever heard that. So for those of you that don't know, the Nakash is the Hebrew word for snake. It's used in Genesis 3. Interestingly enough, I disagree sort of on a bit of a tangent there just because we mentioned the Nakash. There's an idea that I've seen on YouTube that Nakash is related to it's the similar root to Nechoshet, which means bronze. And so there's this idea that Nakash is a shiny one, which would then mean that it would be akin to Lucifer, the shining one in Genesis chapter 3. And so there wasn't actually a snake in the garden, that there was just Satan, the shining one. I don't think in any way the text bears that out. I think that there might be at best a play on words, but it's definitely a serpent. I mean, I can't think of any way around that textually or contextually. So, Michael Heiser has talked about this a little bit. I think that he would still take a balanced approach and say he thinks it's double entendre or a play on words of some sort, but that it's still a serpent. still understood to be a serpent. But there have been some extreme views that I've heard. And if you've heard that, I think you can discount it safely. Okay. Enkidu 5 says his babies broke his wallet. My first baby broke my tailbone on her way out. Whew. Wow. Man, I don't know what to say. Okay, I'm going to bring this over here so I'm not leaning across. Okay. Right. Oh, Tim Smith said, I will get one of your shirts and be proud to wear it. Thank you. That's really cool. Smash the like button like Enki. Indeed. Let's see. Not snake. Snake and serpent are two different words. Stand by. Because I wish Megan were here because then she could talk while I do research, but sorry, if you want to put the word that you're talking about in the side chat. I only know of Nachash. Let's see. Do you guys also teach Sumerian? I mean, how do you speak Sumerian? That's a good question. We do teach Sumerian. There's a series. I think I'm up to lesson video 7, maybe. I can't remember. So we have Sumerian language course, video course on Digital Hammurabi. We also just started reading Biblical Hebrew. So you can get that as well. I think we're 3 lessons in on that one. Okay, Trevor Lunn. At the time the epic was being retold, is there a sense of where the gods resided currently, or was it a concept limited to the period of the epic's events? I mean, generally speaking, throughout Mesopotamian history, there was this idea that Anu was in the heavens, and Ishtar would go up there, and Enlil was sort of in the space in between the heavens and the earth, but like the whole Middle Earth sort of idea. And then Enki was in the Abzu, under the earth, directly under the earth. And then there were different periods. It kind of fluctuates a little bit. You had the Igigi gods and the Anunnaki gods. And they were in the netherworld and in heaven. Just depends on the period. Hi, buddy. Aren't you excited?
Yes, it's food time.
Okay.
Oh, very exciting thing.
Sorry. I have not tough time reading. Seraphim. Okay, so yeah. So she's referring to, so Saraf is Saraf means to burn, right? That's the we're talking about Hebrew now. So the Seraphim, the seraphim, if you've read Isaiah, so there's an idea that they're linked to fiery flying serpents. That doesn't strictly mean serpent, but Nachash is the common like animal kingdom term for a snake or a serpent. Sorry, Nachash is the fallen version. Oh, don't grab him. Sorry, the computer is really far away and I can't see it. Okay, you should talk because I'm just reading and I'm having a tough time reading.
Well, do you want me to read the questions?
Oh, sure. Sorry, I thought you were feeding him.
I can do both. Let's see.
Buddy, don't stick your head there where he can get it. Gosh.
We had no actual questions. People commenting on how adorable our baby is.
Oh,
He
indeed.
is adorable, and the cat also adorable.
Yeah, so I mean, hammering out, like if you were to say the word for fish in the Old Testament, it's dog, right? It's a very general term. There's no real specificity with it. So, is there another word in the text that represents a type of fish? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't looked at biblical taxonomy in that depth. So is there another type of snake that has a different Hebrew word? Yeah, probably. Like the asp or something in Isaiah. But the general word for like general snake or serpent is nachash.
CD Horde says conversational Sumerian for when you time travels to Sumer.
Indeed.
Exactly. We probably pronounce it wrong. We probably have weird accents.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what anyone would make of using letters to. Dude, look, eat if you're going to eat. Otherwise, I'll put my clothes back on.
It's a great thing to say on a YouTube stream. People keep eating, Oliver. Sorry, none of you are probably saying that.
All far too mature.
Indeed. All right. So if you have any questions for Megan about ancient Near East from like an royal inscriptions or art, or I'm trying to think of other things that you really enjoy doing.
It's all good.
Or if you've got biblical questions for me.
How many students have requested information about your scholarship program? None yet, because no one knows about it.
We haven't announced it yet.
We will. There's an email listserv. Yeah, hi. You need to give me a warning before you do that, or we'll get barred. There's an email listserv for our fields that I don't think I know anyone who it doesn't get academic emails. So we will put out a call for applications in March through that, and then see who we get applying.
I can't read that.
Yeah. It should be good. Deborah McMillan says Nachash were ethereal fiery beings, and under Enki's leadership became physical clay. Thus, Lord of the Serpents. Enki was definitely called Lord of the Serpents, and his genetic work DNA symbol. Can you give us a reference for what you're referring to? Because I've absolutely never come across any of that information in my time as a student. And I'd love to know what the evidence for that is. That would be very interesting. There you
go. So while more questions are coming in, sort of a preview of things that you'll hopefully see here shortly. Of course, I mentioned Ezekiel 26. So if you're not familiar with that, it's the prophecy against the city of Tyre. And Ezekiel says that Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, is going to come and wipe it out, scrape the rock clean that the island sits upon, and throw all of its buildings and everything into the ocean. It'll be a place for spreading of nets. And of course, that doesn't happen with Nebuchadnezzar. And Ezekiel talks about this 3 chapters later in Ezekiel 29, where he says every head was made bald and every shoulder was rubbed raw of Nebuchadnezzar's soldiers, but he was not able to, plunder the city of Tyre. And so Yahweh was going to give him, the king, the country of Egypt for his plunder, and that he was going to make that place desolate, which of course also did not happen. But this sort of thing of unfulfilled prophecy like that, it's not Ezekiel 26. Ezekiel 26, no, it's fine, is not the only place that we see this. You see it in Isaiah. We can talk about that, but the point is that it's having these specific prophecies that aren't fulfilled is problematic for certain people that hold a certain view of the biblical text. So I wrote a paper about this because Mike Winger, again, really seems like a really nice guy, but made a video against Aaron Ra saying that actually, he's got a good explanation for why the text says what it does. I I disagree with his analysis of the text and of the historical of the history of the period, and so I quantify that. I explain that in the paper. Also, I'm going to be dealing with Isaiah 53, Psalm 22, probably looking a little bit at the gospel record. All these things that if you've watched Aaron Ra's Unfulfilling Prophecy video, they come up in Mike Winger's response. And again, I think it's great that Mike did that, and I think it's great that he's trying to, make these two things fit. But I just disagree, number one, with his analysis, and then number two, with the necessity of this. Hey.
Oh, that wasn't nice. Actually, Pine Creek is asking if I've said for them to email us if you'd be willing to talk to Mike about this. And he says that Alexander the Great fulfilled that prophecy, right? The Tyre prophecy.
No, so so here's the problem. If I say I prophesy that Megan is going to Megan is going to feed Oliver milk, right? And then because it looked like just now Megan was going to feed Oliver milk, right? And I say, as she's starting to undo her shirt, Oliver's going to be fully satisfied with the milk, and he's going to be full, and he won't cry anymore, and blah blah blah. And then as we sit here, she starts to feed him. To go to feed him, and somebody knocks on the door, and she goes, and ultimately she doesn't feed him. But then 5 minutes later, as he's screaming, I get a bottle and feed him, right? I'm not fulfilling that prophecy, right? Because the prophecy is very specific.
The prophecy specified.
Yeah, Megan's going to do it. So that's the problem, right? So Alexander's not mentioned in the text, and Nebuchadnezzar is the only one that is. Nebuchadnezzar is the agent that is supposed to exact this judgment. So yes, Alexander in 332, I think it was, did take the city of Tyre, right? He built a land bridge out to it, which we can see the peninsula is built up around it today. But that's that doesn't fulfill the prophecy. It sounds so funny to even say it, prophecy, like it's this real thing. Sorry, not like it's real supernatural thing. Anyway, but yes, he did take Tyre, but Nebuchadnezzar didn't, and that's the material point.
We have
sorry.
No. Tim Smith is Master Dog. Off-topic question: what happened to Marduk after all this time? Is he a later addition to the Sumerian stories?
Marduk is actually an interesting. Sorry.
Go for it.
Okay, Marduk's an interesting case, because he's the god of Babylon.
Thank you.
And he was a low-level figure, really during the Old Babylonian period. We think that probably in the Kassite period, so second half of the second millennium, and coming into the first millennium, he gained prominence, because during the Kassite period, Babylon was
very important.
Is an important thing, and of course, it was important in the Old Babylonian period too. But
more important.
It looks like there are some familial things that are switched around a little bit to start to preface that within the gods. But there's obviously that study isn't original to us. People have written about this, but definitely in the first millennium, what you end up with, instead of having these individual city gods, you have two primary gods over the regions. You have Marduk, who is over Babylonia in the south, and then Ashur, who is over Assyria in the north. And
both of them have their roots as city gods, but the cities that they were patron gods of became so powerful that naturally their gods increased in importance at the same time. Tim Smith, isn't it unfortunate that you and other scholars can't explore the ancient Mesopotamian land? It is. It is.
I've been to Syria, excavated in Syria in 2010. I probably mentioned that before, which was fantastic. Hi, pal. You want to hit my head? This is what he does.
This is his favorite game, is hitting Daddy in the head.
Hi. But yeah, it's very frustrating to not be able to go back.
Yeah, and I feel kind of weird complaining about the loss of archaeological opportunities when there are like literally people being tortured and dying. It's a tragedy, whatever way you slice it. Pine Creek, but how do we get a guy like Mike to understand this? What I do is ask, how would you make the Tyre prophecy even better?
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing. I mean, okay, prophecy is interesting because in in most of these cases, you're the cutest thing I've ever seen. In most cases, prophetic texts, they're difficult in the sense that it's difficult to disprove, to some degree, anyhow, that they're not genuine prophecies, because you have like a that's why something like Ezekiel 26 is so important, or it's discussed so much, because it's clear, right? That one's clear. But you have these texts like in Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53, in my opinion, if anybody's sitting on the edge of their seat, I doubt they are, but Isaiah. Oh, buddy. Here you go. Hi, pal. Good job. Isaiah 53 is obviously part of one of the four servant songs, and of course it's a second Isaiah. Deutero Isaiah is written obviously later. The servants leading up to Yahweh's servant is Israel, right? It's also Cyrus, but Israel, Jacob. This is who the servant was. When you come into Isaiah 53, it's sort of morphed in the sense that you have an individual, a historical individual, that is represented in the same way that in Isaiah 7:14 you have this historical child that's going to be born, this historical pregnant woman that's going to be born as a sign to Ahaz. And in Isaiah 53, you have an actual historical person. Do we know who it was? No, not specifically. But he's a servant that represents the nation. So it's sort of a bit of both, right? You have the servant as Israel and Jacob leading up to Isaiah 53. But when you come into Isaiah 53, you do have this representative of the nation, right? So in that sense, it's very messianic, right? In that sense, because you have somebody who is bearing the penalty, which is what you would expect in the period, given the theological understanding of the people group. This is what you would expect. The interesting, or the difficulty, I suppose, is that later you can say in a writing, in the early second century, maybe late first century, whatever, in these writings, hey, this was actually about Jesus, right? The problem is that it's difficult to falsify, I suppose, because there isn't specificity, right?
You can't go back and interview anyone and say, so were you talking about Jesus here?
I mean, clearly they weren't, and I know that's the problem. I don't think that most scholars that would argue that Jesus actually is the fulfillment of Isaiah 53 or Psalm 22 or Psalm 110 or Psalm 2, whatever, that the authors intended that, right? I don't think they would argue that. Probably most would not. But it's that God intended that. So there's this depth. He's getting, oh my Lord, those teeth are sharp.
Don't do that today.
I might have drawn. Anyway, you're amazing. I definitely don't remember what I was saying.
Isaiah.
No, you can't bite him again. Oh boy, Charlie, that really hurt. Yeah, I don't think that authorial intent, it really is the point here. I think that, and that's what makes it so difficult, because I think that Mike Winger, I haven't obviously asked him, I haven't talked to Mike Winger, but I think that he would say, no, Isaiah, meant, a representative of the nation. Maybe, I don't know. But I don't think that he would say he saw Jesus. Like, I don't know that. Maybe he would. I don't know. I have to watch the videos, but that's what makes prophecy tricky, right? Because it's vague enough. Psalm 22, clearly about the psalmist, right? In his period, bulls of Bashan. I mean, but because of the way the text is worded, it's vague enough that it can be applied later. Of course, you could do that today, right? That stuff could probably be easily applied to Rael somehow. Yeah, sorry, I'll stop.
Pine Creek, do you think it's better to show how Isaiah 53 fails to point to Jesus, or rather show it does point to Jesus but was penned in after the fact?
I mean, I'm trying to think of specific ways in which it wouldn't point to Jesus. Because, see, this is the problem. This is the problem when you have a prophecy that's being formed, or sorry, when you have a fulfillment of a prophecy that's being formed around a prophecy that's written, I don't know, maybe at this point, 200, 300 years earlier. It just depends on when you think Deutero Isaiah was written. It's sort of like, it's unlike Daniel, for example. Daniel's after the fact, right? Daniel's looking back on these kingdoms and saying, and then forming his prophecy, generating his prophecy based on what's already happened. This is what makes Ezekiel not unique, but more useful, because Ezekiel's, just like I was doing, watching, he's watching Nebuchadnezzar moving forward, right? He's watched him take Jerusalem, and he's watching him move forward to take Tyre. And so he sees the writing on the wall. Sorry, a little bit of Daniel play there. And says, oh, well, I just saw him do it to Jerusalem. Now he's going to go do it to Tyre. And because that's what logically makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And this is what the prophets did. Sometimes that just didn't happen, right? And so when you're specific in your prophecy like that, like something like Ezekiel or an Isaiah, not the passages we've been talking about, but there are specific prophecies, for example, against Babylon or something that don't actually come true. That's what makes them unique and more, maybe more useful. Hi, buddy. Hi.
So we had a question from Grant earlier that I missed asking if Sumerian Mesopotamian artworks were primarily intended towards realism, or if they were intended to convey emotion. Almost impossible to know. You do see a progression of artwork becoming more and more realistic.
Naram-Sin's butt.
Naram-Sin's butt, yeah. When you get to the Neo-Assyrian period, they're very meticulous about articulating visually, like bone structure and musculature.
And Naram-Sin's butt.
And also, well, that's
a really,
Neo-Assyrian.
Sorry. I just wanted to say his butt.
Whether that was intended to convey emotion or realism is virtually impossible to say. But there has been a quite compelling argument made for the statues of Judea, which are 4-3-ish period, which means nothing to anyone, but I can't give
just a little bit earlier.
Yeah, yep. Actual dates because I don't remember actual
dates.
Like
2022.
There we go, 22 BC, 2200 BC. That the depictions of this particular king were intended to correlate to specific Sumerian verbs, so that describe positive mental attributes of a king. So he's called like Oliver. He's called strong of arm, so he has this really big right arm. He's
Real
called.
Quick. Bye, Deborah. Sorry, she's saying she had to go. I just wanted to catch that.
He's called wide of understanding, which involves the ears in Sumerian, so he has these big ears. So it seems to be,
or the distance between his ears is wide.
yeah. It seems to be more concerned with depicting the king, and the problem is most of the artwork we have is concerned with the king and with the royal persona.
And with his butt.
Also, we'll do a video on the Studio of Naramson which shows the king's buttocks.
His right
butt cheek, which is apparently very erotic. But that it seems to be more of an interest in showing the king as a suitable ruler than anything else. And with the Neo-Assyrian period, again, and the person you want, by the way, is Irene Winter, Dr. Irene Winter. If you see anything written by her on Mesopotamian artwork, it's gold. And
she's got some lectures on YouTube as well, yeah.
But she made an argument also about Neo-Assyrian palace reliefs and the depiction of foreign lands on palace reliefs, saying that this was a method of control. This was a way in which the Neo-Assyrian kings tried to show their control and domination over foreign lands and enemies and various animals. And to follow that, Art Brandt also said, was the artwork made mostly to convey stories to with the illiterate, or mostly made as an expression of emotion, or just for decoration? I'm sure there were some that were purely decorative. Conveying emotion is a difficult one to identify or to argue for. We have relatively little that seems to relate directly to literary stories that we have evidence for.
So we've got the Stealing of the Vultures is one.
That's not literature though, that's historical.
Huh?
I meant like we don't have scenes from Gilgamesh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you don't.
We do have Humbaba's head.
Yes, was probably used as a protective thing. So it's not like they drew pictures from their mythology. Generally speaking, we have a couple that may be mythologically based, but they didn't generally draw pictures of their mythology.
You are squirming.
But we do have a lot of what might be called political artwork that is propagandistic in nature and was intended to either record the actions of a particular king or publicize the actions of a particular king. Again, I'm going back to the Neo-Assyrian palace reliefs because we have so many and they've been very well studied. But a lot of them are quite gruesome. You see in one of them a king reclining in a garden with his wife and the severed head of his enemy just hanging from a tree casually. And this has been termed the, what's it called? The frightful... There's a particular term for it and I can't remember. But basically it's been argued that this kind of artwork was intended to frighten and subdue diplomats from foreign nations. They were displayed in the palace, which would have been frequented by foreign nationals, and seeing all of these depictions of the Neo-Assyrians flaying their captives alive and taking over cities and beheading people would have contributed to the fear of them and therefore kept their vassal countries in check and stopped foreign nations from attacking them.
I mean, the throne room of Ashurnasirpal II is another example. Yeah. You know, you're coming into this palace and you got to get to the throne room and you're walking past these what are they called? The reliefs. They're made of I can't remember what they're called. The basalt. I'm blanking on the word. What are they called?
I don't know.
That they're in the British Museum. The
obelisks. Steelies.
No. Anyway. Right. So you've got to walk past them, and it's meant to be very imposing. And intimidating.
Okay, we're not taking any more questions. If you've typed it, we will answer it, but no more new ones, please, because we have to go and entertain this child.
He's trying to fly.
Yes, he is. Enkidu 5. What did Ezekiel mean by every head was rubbed bare and every shoulder made raw?
Probably baskets with earth in them, like dirt in it, that was used to come up and mount a siege. Yeah, so that you put it on your head.
On your shoulders.
On your shoulder.
He wants to get the cats. He's not allowed to get the cats. Misha Griffith, did the Mesopotamian cultures have professional rhapsodes like I don't know if I pronounced that right, like the ancient Greeks to recite poetry as entertainment? They had singers.
The Nar
singers. And there are like hymns composed about kings, which are hypothesized to have been performed in the palaces. So probably yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've got rubrics that are on these texts, the tiggy and different types of instruments that they were played to, and so yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question they were performed.
Zoo painted the true zoo, not the Elgin marbles. No, there are wall reliefs that were like just.
Why can't I think of what they're called?
I don't know. Relief isn't what you're looking for.
No. It's okay.
Orthostats.
Orthostats. That's what I wanted.
There we go.
I love MS. It's awesome.
And finally, CD Horde. Was there a taboo on mythical depictions? And Mosadog suggests that gods' faces were tabooed. No, they weren't. You get depictions of gods everywhere, on cylinder seals, on wall reliefs, on plaques, all kinds of stuff. That wasn't a taboo. I don't know if mythical depictions were taboo or if we just don't have them.
I think we have. I mean, we do have some.
Oh, we've got a couple, but it's not like, oh, look, here's.
Yeah, I mean, it's, well, and if we do, we don't know it.
Yeah, that's true. That's
artwork is very difficult.
All of the Apkallu, the giant winged genie things, they might be depicting mythological literature. We just don't have the existing tablets.
And this is the problem, right? So and then we can stop, I'm sure. But you know, when people talk about the tree of life, you know, the tree that the Apkallu are watering, and they make very definitive statements about what that is.
We don't know what that is. We have no idea if it's a tree of life at all.
Yeah, so.
It might be. CD Horde, any evidence of music? Yes, we have musical notations.
Musical instruments.
That's all I'm saying, because this child needs to go and play. Tim Smith says to put him to bed. He actually just woke up from a nap and he really, really, really wants to play. So I'm not trying to eat my
We knew what the gods look like, so they must have been real.
But we do need to do a show about music because it's very interesting.
You know who we should get on here is Brack.
Yeah.
Talk about ancient musicology.
We should.
In case you don't know, Brack Benet is the one that
he made our music.
Composed our introductory and intro and conclusion music. I'm probably saying that wrong. Anyway.
Thank you everyone for joining us.
It's been fantastic. How many? We have 39 watching right now, 37 likes. And you guys are awesome.
Good job, guys. Tomorrow we're on Myths to Atheist show around 9 p.m. EST. We are going to be in Denver Wednesday through next Sunday. The plan is to get all of our videos uploaded before we go. We might not make it because I'm presenting a paper and I want to make sure that the paper is, you know, presentable before we leave.
But Megan won't be able to do her like Wednesday live stream like she's normally
probably because I'll be on a plane. Yeah. But there should be videos to entertain you, and
my sermon should go up
later today
or tomorrow.
Tomorrow's good.
Which I think will be fun.
So thank you all for joining us. This was lots of fun.
Indeed.
And we won't see you next weekend because we'll be in Denver, but we will see you the week after.
Until next time, resist poor scholarship. Always ask.
How do you know that?
Bye, guys.